These are two false flag events that have defined and characterised our new millennium, and they both tell the people who they have to hate and fear. This is the terrible thing about these events. They define the new enemy image, and that's why it's so terribly important for us to study them. On 9/11, the people of New York had the government telling them on the morning about Osama bin Laden. It was introduced the very day. The bombs were almost just, planes were just crashing into the towers, and soon after, Osama bin Laden, and he was the new bogeyman. On July the 7th, Tony Blair, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, comes back from Gleneagles, and he announces to the British people, we know that those who did this did so in the name of Islam. So that was before the police could possibly have any clues at all. The British people are told who to hate and fear. Okay? So a demonised enemy is being fabricated, and it's totally presupposed, more or less presupposed. All this anti-terror legislation we're getting is kind of presupposed that somehow the Muslims have a tendency to terror, you know. Okay. Now, at the core of these two events was the terror drill rehearsal. It's terribly important that you appreciate that when these big constructed terror events go on, there are drill rehearsals going on. So in 9/11, there were planes being told to rehearse, say, flying into the Pentagon, for example. There were the huge lorries, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, turned up, and actually turned up the Monday evening, the day before 9/11. And they turned up at Ground Zero, and they were able to help begin the clearing up. Now, they turned up the day before because of a terror drill going on in New York City. So there were quite a lot of terror drills going on, occupying all sorts of different people on the event of 9/11 that contributed to the secret hidden process whereby it happened. Okay? Peter Power, he's the maestro of British terror drills. He was conducting a drill which he told the British people, went on TV the same day, was at the same 3 tube stations and at the, more or less the same time, 9 o'clock in the morning. So bombs go off, same 3 tube stations, and people calculate the likelihood of that, about 1 in a billion, get the same day of the year, the same time, the same tube stations. Okay, that's astronomically improbable. There he is, staring into the TV screens, honestly asking us to believe that it's just a coincidence. Okay, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Power, we don't accept that. And there's always been debate to what extent were people really on the ground in this terror drill, and to what extent were they, was it just a computer screen process. But it was definitely going on, nobody doubts that. Okay, so that's a core to understanding the 7/7 event, and it's why people within the 9/11 movement are very equipped and qualified to understand the 7/7 event. It's because it has that core similarity of the terror drill going on, which enables the people actually making it all happen to be there and to explain what they're doing there. Okay? Now, one sort of lesser things we can point out, Mayor Giuliani, he was a key figure in the 9/11 story. He was up there in the towers, and he was warned before they come down to get out, and that's a very privileged position if you're warned and told to get out, and he did so. So he had he was in control then immediately of the clearing up operation, and he was able to, for example, stop people taking photographs and get rid of all the steel and rubble in a way that without journalists being able to talk about it. Okay, so he had a very central role. Also, he had stopped the firefighters. A whole lot of them had experiences of multiple bombs going off in the towers, and they really wanted to talk about it, and he managed to stop them. So he's a man of terrific power in New York as the mayor. Totally crucial. If you want to believe there was an insider for 9/11, he was an insider. Okay. Now, what's he doing turning up the day before July the 7th? He's up north. He's giving a talk to British police about what a great job Tony Blair and Bush are doing in the war against terror. Aha! And then next morning he's down at a hotel at Liverpool Street. So he's got the bomb going off while he's having breakfast just underneath him. Whoa, fancy that. And nobody's ever said a word about what he was doing in this country at all. on that July 7th event. So he just happened to be there, and his buddy Benjamin Netanyahu also just happened to be there. And I'll fancy that Netanyahu gets a warning, not to go to his the big Tel Aviv conference that in that morning. He gets told in advance that it's going to happen, but let's not go into that. So Giuliani was quite a key figure who was present at both of these events. Okay, both of these events were happening in the early morning, just around 9 o'clock. Important you happen in the morning to get on the full news coverage that day. Both are sort of fourfold. If you think there were 4 planes in America that crashed and impacted, supposedly, and 4 events in the 7/7 story. We could make some other comparisons in that a lot more planes were initially reported as having gone AWOL on the 9/11, and likewise there were a lot more reports of the 7/7 event of people on different coaches having traumatic or explosions or being killed, not necessarily on when they're supposed to be. We can also note the way ID was suddenly found, or found rather quickly, in a way that some people were rather suspicious of. I'm sure you all remember the story of 9/11, how a passport fluttered down from the blazing inferno and happened to be the passport of one of the hijackers. In London, at the blast sites, the police rapidly identified, by the 11th or 12th, all 4 hijackers, rather suspiciously quickly, okay? Long before they'd identified most of the other 52 victims. Some of the things they claim to have found as ID is a bit questionable. So I think overall, in the way these events are structured, there's quite a lot in common.